Yeah, sorry, it's late. We had to go to AT&T to get a phone thing figured out.
Mm.
And it took 2 hours and we didn't get it
Oh yeah,
figured out.
as that kind of stuff oftentimes goes.
Well, and we didn't get it figured out, so it's pretty
Oh, as those things
great.
oftentimes go.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, fine. I'm fine.
Uh, I've been, I think I said this like a week or two ago, but I have been shooting with 35 millimeters. I've been shooting with 35 millimeter film, and I got my roll back. So I've been looking at those, and it's been a good time.
Oh yeah, how did it go? Did you get any
Um,
Coolio?
they came out looking like pictures. So as far as I'm concerned, it is a major victory.
That's your massive success.
I know. But a lot of people were, impressed by them, which I like people that people that do film
Oh.
were like, no, I think people it was uh I showed them my pictures and I was like, they're like, oh, these are nice. And then I said, it was my first role ever. And they were like, whoa, that's not bad. And then so I think that I don't know what I'm doing, but other people seem to think I know what I'm doing. So that makes me feel more competent in this thing. But yeah,
Uh,
no, it's going well. A lot of shots of my roommate's dog.
mm.
Way more than I thought I took. So definitely less on the next time.
We used to do whenever we throw parties at the White House, not the White House, but a White House that I lived in. Whenever we throw parties at the White House, we would have a disposable camera and a lot more pictures from the insides of people's mouths than you would think. Really, people pretty much see a disposable camera and are like, I should stick this in my mouth and take a picture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they did. There are a lot, man, lot
Yeah,
of pictures of the
like
insides of people's
yeah,
mouths.
it was way less creative than people thought it was.
It was, or just less
Okay.
original. It was just a pretty
Yeah, yeah,
common
yeah.
thing of like,
Because
we have an
yeah,
album
because
of this.
you would think it's like I'm gonna take a picture of the inside of my mouth. That hasn't been done yet, and it's like not only has it been done, but we have no pictures of this party.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and also, I mean, it did not help that we threw a New Year's Eve party in the middle of December because we thought it was funny. And like,
Hmm.
we literally, it was one night I came home and one of my roommates, well, imagine this tableau. One of my roommates is very drunk. The other roommate is trying to find him in footage of a festival that he attended 3 years ago. So he's just
Okay, yeah.
watching footage of the festival and he's like, no, I'm in it. And I'm like, okay, dog, I guess we'll find it. And then the other guy's sitting there and he's just very drunk and he's just like, okay, seeing how people celebrate Thanksgiving on whatever day they want. I was like, no, but go on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think what he was basically remembering was that, like, because of in laws and travel, sometimes people do Thanksgiving on different, like, oh, we'll do Thanksgiving here and then we'll go to this family and do things.
Hmm.
Anyway, that was his initial premise, but he was like, and you can pretty much do any holiday on any day, except New Year's Eve. And I was like, man, that's super not how holidays work. Like, now Valentine's Day on a day, like St. Patrick's Day on a
On a
day,
day.
4th of July on a day. But he was just convinced that all of the holidays were on. People just celebrated them whenever they really felt like it, man. So, so from that dumb idea, he was just like, what if we just had a New Year's Eve party just in the middle of December? And I was like, that sounds super funny. And so we like got all the footage from the 2000, I think it was like the 2000 ball drop. And it like, that footage started at like 6:30 in the afternoon or whatever. So we just waited
Mhm.
until it lined up with our time and we just turned on this 4 hour YouTube video and just
Yeah,
had New Year's. Were you at this party?
I was at this party.
Tight, 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 tight.
I was at this party because I was obsessed with that footage because it was 2000 into 2001,
Okay.
and I was talking about I like I was obsessed with the footage because I was like, wow, man, that was probably like the last year that it didn't have like a lot of security. And then people were like, why? And I was like, well, because of September 11th. And then me and like two other people were watching the footage. And then they stopped watching it and started talking to people, as you do at parties. But I was just like zoned, focused in on like everything that was happening in that footage because I was like, wow, look at all them. Not a care in the world.
They have no idea what's coming for them. Um, no, wait, it was from 2000 to 2001.
It
Okay.
was the new year of 2001. So it was from 2000 to 2001.
Okay. All right. At first, I thought you said 2001 to 2002, and I was like, "Hey,
No,
Zach,
no, 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 no,
let me tell you when 9/11 was."
no.
I talked about 9/11 today, like twice. Uh, yeah, that's sad. That's a sad thing you said. It
Yeah.
was a fun party though. I honestly sometimes forget that it wasn't New Year's because like we seriously had footage running for like 4 hours and and
Mhm.
counted down the New Year and everything, and like we'll talk about New Year's and we're like, wait, which New Year's? Like, oh yeah, you're right. We had two. We had two different New Year's because then we
Mhm.
went to a New Year's Eve. All those same people went to a New Year's Eve party
Yeah.
on New Year's Eve. Um, that was a rad party. Were you ever there for our Cinco de Mayo party at the apartment before that?
No, I think I missed that one. I'm trying to. There was this one party I went to at your house where you had to sign a lamp as we walked in,
Oh,
and
that was all the fun.
I yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, well, like there was because this is Sam's history of like party signings. Sam always had a sign-in sheet to his parties, and there was one that was a cat. I think it was like a poster or like a birthday card or something that had a cat on it, and everyone had to like sign this cat.
Zach,
And
it's not like it. You're not telling that story like someone who knows me. It sounds like you heard someone on a bus explaining that
no, well,
you were there. That's
no, I'm
absolutely not it.
yeah, no. What was it? Because I remember because this happened. Like I signed this thing one time, and then I never saw it ever again. But you would bring it up.
So we had this running joke, not a joke, but like, blah, blah, blah. I was at a fraternity house my freshman year and they showed me they had a traffic cone that everyone signed. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So then junior year, when I moved in with Charlie, we blah, 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 something got a Halloween Hallmark card, like a big Halloween card that had a black cat in it. And so you would open it up, and we called it Halloween Cat, and it sang a little song. And we had anyone that visited our apartment sign it. So, so it was not a sign-in sheet on a cat in my apartment. It was just not if you came to parties. It was just like if you were at my house. Like if you had never been to my house before, you would sign the Halloween cat. And so we had this little thing of like, oh, here are all the people that visited. And then the next year, Charlie and I lived in an apartment, nice apartment, and the nice apartment. That's just how I call it. There's the haunted apartment. There's the
There's
nice
have a
apartment,
spooky mirror apartment and the nice
spooky,
apartment.
and then there's the White House. Um, but anyway, in the nice apartment, uh, I was walking down the street and I found a paddle, like a fraternity paddle, but it was like one of the big ones, like one of the like 4.5 foot long ones. So I picked, and I think it was for my fraternity. Now that I think about it, I think we like sort of found it and we're like, oh, this was like from our house because people would break into our house all the time and steal stuff. And so it was like
Yeah.
ours from earlier in the summer because someone had broken in. And I found it on the street months later and it's all washed out and it was garbage. And so I took it home to Charlie and Charlie's good at painting. So he painted a cool design on it and then had a big white space and then people could sign it. So at the nice apartment, we had that. And then when we got to the White House, we had a lamp that everybody signed that I threw in the garbage. So that was you signed the lamp when you came.
Yeah, yeah. And it was like I signed the lamp on the same day that Zach
Oh,
Johnson, my namesake, won the British Open. He's a golfer
you're
that. Hmm?
you're named after the golfer Zach
I
Johnson.
am no, I'm not named after the golfer Zach
Like,
Johnson.
isn't he like 29? Like he's not.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He's like a little bit older than this. Probably he won the Masters in 2007, so he's probably like in his 30s or 40s. But
Wait.
hmm?
Oh, but you weren't signing for Zach Johnson winning the Masters.
No, I was signing in for Zach Johnson winning the British Open.
Got it.
Yeah. I don't know where that, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that lamp, and how that's, every time I saw it, I was like, oh, I signed up the day that Zach Johnson won the British Open.
That was such an insane period in my life because like it was a very transitionary one, but I remember there was this video that Evan, my roommate, one of my roommates from that place, sent to me, and he sent it to me and I said, "Yeah, dude, that's me. I could not explain to you what's happening in this video, but like, yep." And basically, we had a giant, so that lamp set on a giant tube television that the old roommates had kind of left and we were just stuck with, and so it became a piece of furniture. And I had started a fire on top of the
Yep.
television. So I didn't have a shirt on and I was drinking a beer and just starting a fire. And everyone else looked very concerned and I didn't at all. And it was just like he sent it to me. He's like, what were we doing? Or what were you doing? And I was like, Ev, I really don't know. I was just starting a fire, I guess, in the middle of the day. And like it didn't like set the television on fire, but it was a fire on top of the television. I think I was like burning an army man. I have no idea what was going on. But he sent me this video and I was like, look, man, it was a weird period of life. Like I was just, figuring myself out. And maybe
Yeah.
that meant setting fires in the house, but that's what
Yeah.
happened.
I was single and angry and had a,
See, I don't even know if I was single. I might have actually been dating my wife at that point. Uh Maybe. Honestly, I have no idea. I don't know what the context was. I don't know why I was doing it. Also, Evan, he, takes a bunch of Polaroid pictures.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm sure, I know I've told you, I don't know if we've talked about on the show about me. Oh, yeah, we talked about it last week. He's the guy that was taking the Polaroid pictures
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
at Tug, and I'm sitting there like, oh, I can't shake the photo. So anyway, he's got all these photos of me throughout college, and in every single one of them, I've got my shirt off. Like for whatever reason, he only ever take like whenever he's taking pictures, I just like don't have a shirt on, and it's like, all right, man, I guess this is what you did for college was not wear a shirt, and it was like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, and the ones from the bachelor party, same way. I've got two pictures
Yep.
of me from that party, from that weekend, and like don't have a shirt on for whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to be fair, I was the only one that had my shirt on in that one thing because it was like just attached to my body, and I was like, it was when we were running in the rain, and it was just like I was like I couldn't get this off if I tried.
No, oh, those pictures. No, no, no. I mean the whatever the
Oh, he
printout.
didn't take a. I guess he didn't take a Polaroid of that. Like,
No,
obviously, he wouldn't bring it outside. It was, yeah. It's the one where we're sitting on the like balcony, and then the one that he is taking from like an aerial shot of us in the living room.
right. I don't think we
Mhm.
were. I don't think we had yet run through the rain yet.
No, 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 no.
We weren't the wettest boys who had
We
ever
were,
been.
we were not.
Um, no, but I don't have a shirt on either. Those pictures of like, Ev, one of these days, and he's like not trying. It's just like a thing where he's like, I don't know. Whenever he takes pictures, I don't have a shirt on. Um, do we have a topic?
I don't have a topic. Oh no.
You just got off work. I just got out of the store. It's kind of hard.
Yeah. There's one thing I want to talk about. I don't know how personal that this story is, but one thing I've been saying to people recently is how funny it, like, okay, I was not there at this party. I don't know where I was, but on the subject of you dating your wife,
Sure.
there you told me this later that you had thrown this barbecue as like an elaborate ruse, or like it was like a bonfire or something, and the entire purpose of it was for you to like get to know her more. And you had like told people it's like, this is a ruse, this is all one big lie in order for me to do this very specific purpose. And I don't know how true that story is, but I tell it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's a true story, but the thing is, this is one of those things where, you know, if it works out, it's nice. If it doesn't, he's crazy. And I have a lot more crazy ones in my column than I do works. Actually, I've only got the one that
Mhm.
worked out. But
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? It's one of those where it's like, man, I hope this goes well. Otherwise, I'm that crazy guy. I mean, I guess it wasn't that, whatever. Anyway, basically, yeah, the whole story is that I kind of knew of her. We were friends of friends, but she's a little bit younger than me. And so we didn't exactly have a reason to talk. Like we didn't have a reason to know each other. We had similar friends, but not similar enough that we were actually gonna like hang out. And so I was just like, hey, I told my roommates like, hey, let's throw a cookout. Like the school year's about to start. let's throw a cookout. And they're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And I was like, oh, this will give me a reason to invite this girl over so I can get to know her. Well, I invite her and she says yes. And then I'm like, cool. Now this cookout definitely has to happen. So I told my friend, so all my friends came over, but they were like, there was only, 15 people there. So it was all people that I knew enough that I was like, hey, I really want to talk to this girl. Please come to this cookout so that people are there. And so we start dating, and I tell her like 3 months into the relationship, like, oh yeah, that whole cookout was literally just for you. Like there was the only reason that we were having a cookout was so I could talk to you.
I
Whoa.
Sorry, I knocked something over. I love that story because it reminds me of this like the Great Gatsby sort of like throwing this party for the sole purpose of that Daisy would show up and just like doing that over and over and over again until it finally happened. That it was just like it's the equivalent. Like you threw a party for one person and everyone else was just props.
I mean, he was the bad guy in that story, so I don't know if I exactly want the comparison, but yeah, I guess it's similar to that. Um,
Was he the
yeah,
bad guy in that story? I read The Great Gatsby once and I really did not understand it all that much. I thought like Circumstance was the bad guy.
I mean, Gatsby was all right in the end. It was the things that fed on Gatsby, but I don't know. He was fine. He was exactly fine. Um, I would not want to be Jay Gatsby, but he was fine. He was a product of his environment. But I don't know. It's not an interesting nor funny topic to explain Jay Gatsby and his complication. But yeah,
Okay.
it's not someone that I would want to be. Basically, I mean, whatever. He just like wanted to be loved, but that is not a great excuse.
Mm-hmm.
He should have just, I don't know. He's a frustrating guy. He had everything he wanted. So I'm genuinely frustrated with
But like I like that you said that as if like that you're friends with him and you're just like, oh, he's just going down a weird path right now. Like,
Well, because there's this moment in the story. Again, we're gonna spoil the Great Gatsby if you're 15 and haven't read the Great Gatsby yet. Like, or I guess if you're not American,
or
maybe you haven't.
yeah, and also if you are studying for a test, then this is the perfect one to listen to because we're just going to tell you what happens in the end.
Yeah, not that people who aren't American haven't read the Great Gatsby, but everyone in America is required in their education to read the Great Gatsby. I have no idea what other countries' requirements are. It's probably not the Great Gatsby. But anyway, there's this moment at the end where Daisy is like, "Yes, I love you," and she's telling Jay that she loves him, and her husband is like all mad about it, and then Gatsby is like won't let it go until she admits that she never loved her husband. And she's like, that's just not true. Like I did love him, but I loved you too. And he won't let it go. And it's like, dude, you could have everything you want. She'll go be with you, but but he won't let it go. And he won't be satisfied until she admits that she never loved her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh God, it's just really frustrating. And then a bunch of sad stuff happens. And it's just like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Unrequited love is not a good idea. Like you should not be in love with someone and a green light across a pond. That's not a good idea. You should fall in love with real people and not the idea of people.
Mm-hmm. Now we're
yeah, I don't want to talk about that because it's not funny. I want to talk about cartoons or whatever. But like, anyway, he's a frustrating character because like he should have just given up on the idea of her because he never. I don't know if Jay ever really loved Daisy because it's like you never knew her. You haven't talked to her in like 2 decades. Like, do you love her? Like, you love the idea of her, certainly. You are infatuated with her, but that's different than loving her. Like, you don't know her. Like, she's a person.
Yeah.
And like, she's not a fool. Like, she wants to be a fool, but she isn't. She's smart and she's a person and she like has a whole real personality that no one takes the time to get to know. And Gatsby is exactly the same way as everybody else. He doesn't care, just like her husband doesn't care. Nobody cares about what Daisy is actually like. They just like the idea of her. And she wishes she was a fool that couldn't see that, but she can. And it's like, so it's like, there's one angle of like, it is romantic the way that Gatsby loves Daisy, but like, is it? Because like, why doesn't he just take the second to know her? And why doesn't he like believe her? And why doesn't he respect her enough to be like, you're married, I'm going to leave you alone? Like, so it's like, That's what I mean by frustrating. Like, I would love to romanticize it, but I just don't find it romantic because it's like you don't, not just that you don't respect her marriage
Hmm.
because her husband doesn't respect their marriage either, but like he doesn't. It's a quick moving book. Like they meet for tea or something in the afternoon, and he buys her all these flowers, and he like they talk a little, and they're kind of infatuated with each other, and they kind of have a day together, but like I understand it's a book that has to have a plot that has to move forward, but it's like, I don't know, dude, you haven't seen her in like 10 years. Like, do you know her? And the fact that he won't just let it go. He won't just start his because it's not about Daisy. He won't just start his life with Daisy. He needs to be right. And it's like, well, then you're gonna be
Hmm.
like you get to be right or you get to be happy. Like, what do you want? Well, and Gatsby chooses being right and he doesn't get anything. So
Hmm.
it is a frustrating character. But like it's a good book.
Yeah. I like I when I read that I didn't pick up on those things. I think I was like so focused on the plot and the moving elements of that rather than like getting into the character of Gatsby himself.
Well, that is the benefit of I mean, I didn't get a star spangled education. I got a pretty good education, especially in the English department. But like, whatever. There were a bunch of books that I never had to read. Um, we had the kind of school where like they would not assign summer reading because they knew no one would do it, and it's like we're not just gonna fail this whole class of kids. And they were just realistic enough to be like, look, no one's gonna read this. I'm not gonna assign it. So
Hmm.
we never had any reading, and so a lot of students read 12 books a year. Well, they read a bunch of them over the summer, whereas we would read like 3 books a year. And so a bunch of the books that most people read in high school, I didn't get to. So I read a lot of them out after college. So, I didn't know forever the whole thing about the green light. And people used to give me crap about it, like it's a symbol and for hope. And like, yeah, but if you're not having to write, an open
Yeah.
response question about
That's
what is the
yeah, that's
symbolism,
true.
yeah, you just
It
miss
is
it.
that is like I think is so diminishing from understanding books that you in order to like in order to like test your knowledge of a book, you have to pick out symbolism that's in it or something. And so I like took tests without reading the book and you could get along just fine. Like if you had context clues enough to like know what a symbol was, you could get away with not reading a book at all. There was one book called In the Time of the Butterflies, which I never picked up. And it like I passed every single test, not because I'm like smart, but because all the questions were so leading into what like the symbol was. And if you could just give a good enough answer to talk about the symbol rather than what it happened to the characters, you did just fine. And so I had figured that would happen. That book was assigned like way late into the semester, and Great Gatsby was one of them. And like I read it with the intention of finding the things I was going to be tested over rather than reading the book for itself. And so I do think that you not having this Star Spangled Education or whatever is good because you didn't have to read it by being told like this is what this means. And the only book that I read, there was 2 books that I read that I had to that you could read whatever book you wanted, and it was Frankenstein and Slaughterhouse-Five. And those 2 to this day remain my like 2 favorite books because I wasn't told what to get out from it. I was getting whatever I wanted out from it and like understanding the motives of the characters and everything.
I haven't told you this because it doesn't come up, but my microphone stand every week, I have a microphone that doesn't like
Mhm.
it's short. My microphone stand every week is my stack of Kurt Vonnegut books. So I'm literally
Yeah,
recording this podcast on top of Slaughterhouse Five.
Cat's Cradle,
Yes, I mean, yep, that's what we're looking at.
Attack on Titan,
Nope, that is
Naruto,
yeah, that's an anime. Okay,
Flight of the Concords, and Fast and Furious 7.
yep. Uh, what's that one called?
Furious 7.
Fury Seven. Um, yeah, Frankenstein was one that I really really enjoyed.
I think I liked Frankenstein for the dumbest reason. I liked Frankenstein in the way that a teenager likes Frankenstein. Of so there is the whole like there's it reads like kind of like found footage in the same way that Dracula it reads like you are reading journal entries or you're reading other people's account of what's happening. And there is this massive diary section of Adam, which is the name of the monster, Frankenstein's monster. Um, and he's talking about what it means to be human and what it means to feel rage and what it means to have like this passion for vengeance. And Frankenstein is going through the same things, but as one is like coming to terms with them, one of is discovering them. And I liked it because in my 16-year-old head, I was going through the same things that Adam was going through. And I was just like, oh man, like that's totally me. Like I'm just discovering what it means to be like a human and how I can like love. And then so it was just like the most annoying thing. And I think if I can find the paper I wrote, the paper reads like, man, I am him, you know, like this is what I'm like, and like this is how it relates to me. And it's like so like alarmist and so just like it is just so pretentious. And so I need to reread that book, having not been me. But a lot of the things I still like in my head when I'm like thinking, like when I'm going through something, I'll be like, oh man, this is just like what happened to Adam.
That's funny. I mean, I think, well, one being Mary Shelley was like 19 when she wrote it, so like
True.
that might be why it sounds like that. But the other thing that I thought was so interesting from Frankenstein is like when you go especially the very first Frankenstein movie, like is inaccurate, and that's not that
Oh,
interesting to say,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it is so inaccurate to this really incredible degree, to the point that, and this is what I pay my student loans for, that I can make up dumb garbage about films, to the point that it almost seems like they intentionally told the story from the perspective of the villagers. And there's one important moment that like I honestly think solidifies this idea, because you know, in Frankenstein, the monster talks, he gives himself a name, he's very well spoken, he's very kind. Like not only does he talk, but him talking is a huge portion of the book. Like the fact that he can talk and read and write is like a giant part of the book. And there's this distinct moment in the book where he walks to this pond and he sees this little girl and she's drowning, and he jumps in and tries to save her, and either saves her or can't save her or something. Like I think he's trying to save her and he can't, or something. He sees her fall in the lake and tries to save her. I think something along those lines.
Yes.
But importantly, he doesn't do it. And then in the movie, the first one, which I'm not going to look up when it is, but it's the 1930s Frankenstein. This big dumb monster who can't talk walks up to this little girl who is standing by a pond, picks her up, throws her in the lake. And it's like, this movie is what if Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was told from the perspective of the villagers, which would be brilliant. The only problem is no one's read the book. They've just seen that movie, and that's what every other Frankenstein movie.
That's true. And also, like, the majority of the action of Frankenstein doesn't take place in a village. Like, Frankenstein, the creature, he gets out and goes into the Arctic tundra, like, immediately. And so most of the action takes place with this Victor Frankenstein's on a boat following him, and he is like, he has these sled dogs. I don't know where he got these sled dogs, but he's just like booking it through the tundra. And so most of the action takes place between those two characters.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's mostly talking.
A lot of like poetic soliloquies about like what it means to feel guilt and what it means to feel shame. Because Victor Frankenstein, everything he's going through is feeling shame for going against God, and the creature is just feeling like guilt for having so much anger.
Right, and that's the thing, is like the movie is so wrong that it almost seems willfully wrong.
Well, so is Dracula. Dracula's willfully wrong too.
I remember Dracula.
Well, Dracula, like that one is also just tons of dramatic soliloquies, whatever. And like the character Dracula is this like old man, this old Russian man who is like talking to this female character. And then they like, it's like they took they took the marketable things from it, like Frankenstein's monster. Boom, he's a monster. And Dracula is a vampire. Boom, vampire. And they just like ran with those things. I'm assuming there's a Creature of the Black Lagoon movie that's the exact same, or book rather.
It's like there's definitely a Creature of the Black Lagoon movie. Yeah, I don't know, man. It just seems so weird that like it seems it seems to me that no one who has ever made a Frankenstein media property
Yeah.
has ever read the book Frankenstein. Like that's the thing is like it's from a book that is popular.
Yeah.
Like like it's you know what I mean? Like isn't that weird that like it's so cuz like at least Dracula is a vampire and like seduces women maybe? Does he? Like does he drink blood and seduce women and like sleep at night?
I haven't
Like
I
is
haven't
that
read
true?
Dracula in 1,000 years, so I have forgotten everything about it.
What I'm
I'll have
saying is
to.
like if you saw a movie about Frankenstein and you listed the characteristics of Frankenstein, you'd be like big, dumb, can't talk, kills people. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, pretty much every part of that is not just incorrect, but the opposite. And it's like, so anyone that makes a movie where it's like, yeah, he's big and dumb and can't talk and kills people, it's like, so you just haven't read the book at all. Like I just that just
Mhm.
seems so weird to me to make a property based on a book and be like, nah, we're good. It'd be like if you had never read, well, I guess Harry Potter is accurate. I don't know. I don't know. I can't even think of another example where like, oh, well, we just didn't read the book. We just watched the movies. And it's like,
Mhm.
but why wouldn't you read the book before you make or you just don't care? I mean, I guess that's part of it. It's more marketable.
Yeah.
Like if everyone did Frankenstein the way that it was in the book, it probably wouldn't be as popular as it is. Honestly, we might not
Yeah.
read it. We might not read it
That's
because
true.
part of why
I
we read it is
well,
because it's Frankenstein.
um, the only other time I like, uh, I'm trying to think of like another property that has that, but not to the degree that Frankenstein does. I've like my only like I've never read the Harry Potter books, but I've seen all the movies.
Mm.
And part of that is because I don't like I never got the like separate the book from the movie thing. Like I saw Hunger Games and I really didn't like it because they didn't go into all the things that I thought was important. And it's like almost like Star Wars: The Last Jedi, where you've made a movie in your head, and every movie that can be made will fall short because it's not the one that you made. And I but there's one that I am full on in love with, and or in like in love that it's like it could not have been more wrong. And it's Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. That movie is like the only thing it shares similar with the book is that the character names are the same. That is the only thing that is similar between those two. None of the
Now,
sequences, like there is absolutely like nothing that happens in the book happens in the movie, and like vice versa. They're two completely independent things.
I've read Prince Caspian, but I read all the Narnia kind of quick together, and Caspian's in a couple books, so I honestly don't
Mhm.
remember. It's not. I always get Caspian and the Silver Chair mixed up because don't they? They're both on a boat.
That's Voyage of the Dawn Treader,
Oh
and they're on a
shit!
boat in that one.
What
Voyage
happens
of
to
the
Prince
Dawn.
Caspian?
Prince Caspian, it's like the whole book centers around there is a there's a kingdom that is that's kind of fallen out of like motion or fallen out of like alignment with Aslan, and all the kids come back and they have to like reintroduce him, but he's like barely in it. There's like none of the I didn't even,
Oh, I remember that movie. Yeah, it's the one where no one can see Aslan but the little girl, and then there's
yes.
a big battle at the end with the White Witch.
Hmm.
Oh, I don't remember what happens in the book at all. Okay. All right. I remember that movie. Yeah, but they're totally different and it's better. Do you think the movie's better?
It is like there is this really weird part of well number like this is me splitting hairs, and then this is splitting hairs, which is a unintended pun. Prince Caspian in the books is blonde, and they make a lot of references to it, which I thought was like funny. That in the movie he's brunette. I'm just like you could have it'd been really easy if you just had done something else. But him and Lucy have this like kind of romantic entanglement, which is infuriating because they're all kids. Like they're all like 12, 13-year-old kids.
Right.
And the books end with this really weird thing. So I'm going to spoil all of Chronicles of Narnia for everyone.
I think we covered this in the last episode. If we're talking about a property, I apologize in advance. Like we're gonna
at the very end of Chronicles of Narnia, it is bizarre. Everyone dies, and the kids, they die in this train accident, and all of them come into Aslan's country, which is heaven. Da 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 da. But Lucy isn't there. Not Lucy. Hold on. What's her name? What are the kids' names?
I don't know.
Hold
You're
on
thinking
just
of the last
a second.
battle. That's the end of it. That's the last battle.
Yeah. No, but the reason why I'm gonna make a reference to this is it's gonna be apparent in just a second.
What is it?
Once
Pippin, Kate. What are the names?
I do not know.
Okay, well, I will let you. I'll give my thing about Chronicles of Narnia, and you can look them up. My thing is they're not 12, and I know it's like a kid's book and it's whatever, but there is this kind of thing that hangs over the series, which is at the end of Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. They grow up, like they're grown adults, and they are ruling this kingdom, and they live a whole life and like fight in wars and do all this stuff, and are like super duper grown. And then they walk out of the wardrobe and they're kids again and have to like do math and be kids. And it's like Peter, you were like a king of a whole place for a long time. And it's like, nah, I gotta go back to school now. And it's just like, it just like hangs over the series for me of like, so those kids are like super grown up, right? Like, are they, no, they're fine. Okay, I guess they're fine. I guess it's a kid's book and they're fine, but did you find their names?
Yes, her name is Susan. But so the books end with this like super. It is like one of these. It is a very weird and kind of like out of nowhere, like tonal about face where all the kids get into Aslan's country from dying in this train crash, except for Susan, who one doesn't die, and two. Aslan, they're like, oh, is she ever going to be here? And Aslan's like, no, because she stopped believing in me. And she like remembers this time as only a childhood game, which is funny because that she lived an entire life in Narnia.
She did grow up to be an old woman
in Narnia. But so at the very end of the books, there's this really weird section where it's like, yeah, she stopped believing in me, and she started like caring more about makeup and boys. And so basically like she became worldly and then renounced like Aslan or Narnia. And it is so jarring because it implies that because I don't know if you guys know this, but the Chronicles of Narnia books is an allegory to Christianity. I don't know if that's going to blow any minds, but it's like this thing where she loses her faith and then is not allowed in heaven, which is bananas. And then because it's Aslan's country, they're like happy no matter what. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, that kind of sucks, but oh well. And then it keeps on moving and they don't bring her up ever again, which is odd. So back to the Prince Caspian thing. The fact that she was like having this really weird romantic entanglement with Prince Caspian was just like feeding into that weird thing at the end of all the books. And it was like clearly made to like be more enticing for like teenagers and tweens. And I was just like so angry because I was like, man, they don't even care. It's like they got the property of Chronicles of Narnia and it was like, think we should read this book. It's like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. We'll just skim through it. And then they got the characters' names and they were like, cool, bet. Let's start shooting tomorrow.
Cool, whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, that's obviously not to the same degree as Frankenstein, which is like people knew that movie was not correct. But like with Frankenstein, most people are like, that's what Frankenstein's like. He's like a monster. He has bolts in his neck.
He has bolts in his neck
because of the electricity.
And then they
and this is just a minor side note. Victor von Frankenstein never says how the creature is made because he's writing the book as a journal entry, and he is worried that if he writes it down, it'll fall into the wrong hands. So he never writes down how he gets Frankenstein to be alive.
Right, there's no lightning. And even in the movie, the whole like it's alive thing never happens. And it's like, wait a minute, where did this come? Like, is this a fever dream? Like, am I doing one of those? Is this one of those Mandela things? Like, what's happening in this series about Frankenstein that they all have this one line that is like not from either the first movie or the first book. It's just like Frankenstein lore. Oh my gosh, when I was a kid, I had to write a short story. You remember? I'm sure in growing up you had the same like portfolio things you had to write.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Of course,
yeah, you had like these four. It was like the biggest thing of the years. You had to write portfolio pieces.
And you had to write like short stories and like a narrative, like a nonfiction thing. It was this whole kit and caboodle.
Persuasive piece, and then some fourth one.
Yeah.
Well, I remember it was one year I wrote a short story, and all of the characters were different, like monsters, like monster of the week monsters, like Frankenstein and Dracula and the Mummy. But one of them was Loch Ness Monster, but it was cool because I was like, well, he's not gonna be a big Loch Ness Monster. So it's like a Loch Ness Monster, but it's just like a regular person. It would be like if Deviant Art made like cool Loch Ness Monster. That's what I like came up with.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember what happens in the story except for the very, very end. But if it's me as a kid, probably they all had to team up to like fight somebody and like do a bunch of punching. And then, yeah, because like, well, how else?
That's the way to solve problems. Like, if I've learned anything from the Avengers franchise, it's that.
Just punch harder till they're punched, and then they're punched, and it's fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they were punching probably. I don't know who they were fighting, but they had to fight somebody. And then at the very end, because I thought wizards were so rad. I guess I still think wizards are rad, but I wrote about wizards a lot. And then like at the very end, I couldn't come up with an ending. So I had mysterious figures come out of nowhere and kill the bad guy, and then it just said to be continued, and I was like, boom, stuck the landing, to be continued. Find out next time. And I was like, and then it was it. And I turned it in. I was done. Like, oh well, cool. You got through the third grade, man. You did it. You just rode yourself into a corner, and then you're like, and we're done. It's over. That's the end of the story. All right, to be continued.
That is so funny. That's like the Ex Machina. Like you just came up with that as a child.
Exactly.
Where it's just like wrote yourself into a corner, write yourself right out. Like introduce some new characters.
There's so many things with portfolios that I think of, and I'm like, did I dream that, or was that real? There are stories that I'm like, I know the whole book, but I don't know what the book was called, and I don't remember reading a book every week. But it's like I have this whole story in my head of like, oh, I remember this. Like I remember this book, but was it just some excerpts from some ORQs during CATS testing, or like am I? I know I read this book, but I could not tell you and it's just like, or like I wrote a short story, and I remember I wrote a big short story, and in the 6th grade, and there was lots of swords and fighting and dragons, and don't know how it ended, don't know how it started. I remember there was just sword fighting, and I handed it to one of my friends, and I was like, they're like, oh, like, can I read yours? And they got one line in, and there was something about swords, and they were just like, I don't like these kinds of stories. And they handed it back to me, and it was like, all right, whatever. Your loss. My cool sword story.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember things. I remember I wrote one that I basically wrote. There was an old show called Home Movies.
Sure.
And it was on Adult Swim. And it was H. John Benjamin was in it, who does the voice of Bob's from Bob's Burgers. And I basically stole the plot of that show into one of my portfolio pieces, and I totally forgot what it was, but I remember as I was writing it, I thought I was so giddy that I got away with it. Like I got an A on it, and I was just like, got him. I just basically just wrote the kind of the general plot to that show, and then I got an A.
That's super funny. I mean, I could not tell you any what personal narratives, what on earth did I write about? What could this have possibly been about? All of that's such a black void of life of I don't know. I remember it being very important, and I remember other we had to do daily writings, and I remember I seriously remember this for months. I would write little, what would be on the internet just fan fiction of like, where you like write, not fan fiction, but like little snippets of a story. And I would just write it every day. And just be like,
Tales to
God,
astonish. Like, tune in next time, teacher. I know you're on the edge of your seat reading this story.
right. And all you had to do was like write for 20 minutes, but I would just
Yeah.
write, stories. And I remember, and you'll see the trend. It was about a guy with a sword, and he just had a sword, but the sword was also magic and maybe could talk.
Maybe,
And
sure.
I don't remember. And they had this whole like quest, and then I got to the end of it and was like, "Oh crap, what do I do?" And then I did that whole like Moriarty's boss, where it's just like, "Oh, actually, there was a bigger monster, I guess."
Good.
And like that was the extent of my story. Honestly, I took a screenwriting class in college. My storytelling has not. I would say it's gotten worse. I would say that would be better because now I'm just like I still don't know how to write. Now, I mean, and I'm not a writer, which is sort of why I don't practice these skills. Like I'm just not. I
Yeah.
don't. It's not that I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it, but also I don't practice. Like I'm sure anyone
Mhm.
anyone can get good at anything if you practice, but I still like write myself into a corner and I'm like, and then they punched him. I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
literally like I don't know, and then they punched him and it was over. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. I don't know how to finish stories
I
or how to
think
make an arc. I don't know what to do.
I think the move that I've noticed to it's really get really good at Matt Groening, who's the creator of The Simpsons, said like this is basically what he did like the first like several years he was writing The Simpsons. He was just like, just steal better stuff, and then say it's an homage. Like, and I'm like,
Oh
that's
my
exactly
gosh.
it. Like, you got them. Like, because like they would write their own jokes and like write their own storylines, but the general premise of The Simpsons is like The Honeymooners or like and all these other shows is like the general premise is something else, and just say you're paying homage, or get really self-aware and then basically claim that you're doing this and then say it's like, oh, we're making fun of that. So like, for example, um, I don't appreciate it when people say that Rick and Morty is one of the most creative shows ever made, in that if you watch all the episodes, it's this them doing a parody of a movie. Like the entire first season is they do a parody of Inception, a parody of Jurassic Park, a parody of like all these other things, and they just get away with it because they're like making fun of that genre.
Right. Like they literally did an episode about the purge. They went to a
Exactly.
place and
Yeah.
had
And then they called it The Purge.
yeah. So it's like, oh, it's like a purge. Oh, you're doing like a purge one. Oh, okay, got it.
No, not only and that, like not only they say like we're doing like a purge one, the way to get away with it is to lean into it so much that you can't criticize them for doing that because they're like, not only we're not doing like a purge one, we're doing a purge one.
Right, because it's like, oh, that one's just the purge, and it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, dude. Did you watch the episode? Like,
yeah, yeah,
no one's confused. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, it's like no one's confused that this is a purge episode because you leaned into it. That's interesting. I never thought about that.
yeah. I've noticed it with a lot of Dan Harmon's writings, especially in Community. Like most of that show is like they'll follow beat for beat a classic sitcom trope, and they'll introduce it by like with the character Abed, who is like very aware. He's like kind of like Abed's a great character, but he's also like kind of a lazy writing tool because he basically like if something is confusing, then he'll just say out front what it is. And it's like, oh man, that's so meta. It's like, no, he did like you wrote yourself into a corner and then you had a character tell you what was happening and then like got away with it.
Should have punched him. That's how you get out of writing
That's
corner.
that's man, I
Just punched him with a sword or whatever. I think that's interesting that you say that Matt Groening did that because, of course, now the trope is like, oh, well, The Simpsons did it. It's
mhm.
funny to think that it's like, oh, Matt Groening's like, yeah, I just steal other people's stories, and it's like, that now the joke is that like every story is just a story that's been on your show, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
I
whatever,
mean,
man.
yeah, I mean, but I mean, he did it.
He
Like,
did it.
but I think like a lot of episodes do that. Like a lot of shows do that, but I think most of The Simpsons was making fun of the previous generation. Like if you go back and watch like I Love Lucy and like The Honeymooners or um, The Odd Couple, like a lot of it is like The Simpsons is basically just like kind of like mocking that, like the traditionalism, and like making fun of them. And then now like the movement is like it's always to make fun of the generation previous to yours. Because like even like Seinfeld does that, and then Rick and Morty is making fun of the generation before that one. And so I'm assuming that one day we'll get into, because like art and style moves in like cycles and waves. Like with the brightness of the 80s is met with like the grunge of the 90s, which is met with the brightness of like this early 2000s like um glam rap and like boy band craze, which is then met with this really weird movement in the rap culture of just being depressed all the time.
Mm.
And so, which has lended itself into why Rick and Morty is so popular, because it's like we're entered into this neo Dadaism type of culture, which is like nothing matters, and like like nothing is sacred, and we can make fun of anything. And this is gonna okay, I'm gonna go off the rails here for a second.
Okay.
Someone once described memes to me as neo-Dadaism, like deep fried memes, or like memes where the joke is how ridiculous it is this callback to Dadaism, which is just like, if you look at it, it's like a bunch of shapes they're like blocky and dark and have no meaning. But you derive meaning from it. And it was like it was directly correlated to the end of World War II, and it was a rebellion against all of these very glorious, very nationalist, very like big pictures of war heroes. And it was their mentality was like, oh well, we are going to do art that is nothing, and we're going to get away with it because that's what people feel like. And so if you go and see like some memes are just jokes where how ridiculous it is, that's the joke. And if someone else from a previous generation were to see it, they wouldn't like, it'd be hard for them to understand, because it's like, oh, why is this funny? Oh, it's funny because it looks crazy. Like there's nothing happening here. And so like I've kind of noticed that our culture is in that season of just nothing is sacred, and the more ridiculous it is, the funnier it is. And I think that the next the next movement will be maybe something more wholesome, because we want to fight against all of the like ongoing dread, which is why I think I told you about this. I don't know if I've talked about it on the show. Seeing like the Mr. Rogers documentary do so well, and like it's being made into a movie starring Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers, and all of these like big wholesome like people like Bob Ross getting into more of the spotlight, because we are now warring against this like universal dread. And the next wave is going to be like from the from the 70s to the 80s, we're going to go from this like dread to this like kind of like bright glam pop again. That's what I mean, that this is my official prediction, in that it's kind of how history moves, in that little like you war against what the generation previous to you did, and it moves in that cycle forever.
Well, and you can see some of that in like the popularity of shows like Great British Bake Off. Like what everyone says about it is like it's just nice. Like it's just a
Yeah.
nice break. Or like the new show Making It with Amy Poehler, and like
That's
these are just the shows that I watch, but like Nailed It on Netflix, where it's like
yeah.
yeah, they're bad at cooking, but it's okay. Like we're not like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's
It's
okay.
like, yeah, it's like I have had my I've had my fill with Breaking Bad, and shows that are Breaking Bad but worse.
Yeah.
Or shows that are The Wire but worse.
Or like Black Mirror, which is it's just like, oh, okay, dude, I don't need to feel bad. Like I don't need to feel bad. I already feel bad. Like please don't. I don't want. Please
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
make me
yeah.
feel bad. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
look, man, I don't need existential dread. I am capped out on the existential dread, and like,
Yeah.
nah,
I walk outside into a sea of existential dread.
right.
Like
Like
I
I'm good. Phones are bad. Got it.
yeah,
Whatever. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Sweet. Good point. See you. Bye. Like, let me just watch a nice show so I can not to like escape, because that's the thing is like, no, it's not. It's not an escape. Like, I mean, well, it is, but it's not like I'm trying to escape everything. I am dealing with everything all day, all the time. That's why I need a break. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
just like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to watch a show like Great British Bake Off, or I want to watch a show like Nailed It. because it's like, look, man, I am constantly dealing with the real world and real stuff, and this anxiety about life.
Mhm.
Like, I don't need to watch a show that's like, everybody's stupid, huh? It's like, no,
Yeah.
like, I got work to do. Like, please, just like, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just want something nice in my life, and I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of that post World War II work shows that. Um, I just don't know if we are in a time right now that we want. I don't think people
I
want meaninglessness. I think people are
yeah,
clinging for
yeah.
something that is meaningful.
Yeah, and I think like I think we were in that, and now we're moving out of it. And
Yeah.
like I have the like we had to because we've been talking for a long time. I have like this thing that I need to do a ton of research about it. I have this like big theory about why Avatar did so well. Avatar, that movie, that James Cameron movie from 2008, it is still to this day the highest grossing movie of all time. And think of what is the name of the main character from Avatar?
Uh, Blue dude,
Yeah, that's his name.
blue dude,
Blue Dude.
blue dude from Avatar.
What is any plot point from that movie?
I mean, I could tell you what happens in Avatar, but it's
Yeah,
because it's
but like
also Pocahontas. Like,
yeah,
it's
but like,
like, yeah, it's not a good movie.
yeah, it's not a good movie, but and also it has maintained it is the top grossing movie of all time. That means that when it came out in 2008, I saw it in theaters. I think everyone saw it in theaters. And that
I
is
saw
like
it in
it
theaters.
was such an event that everyone saw it, but it has not carried over into pop culture at all. Like you could like I could see a very specific quote from a movie from the 1990s or like a movie from like even to this day like Mean Girls, that movie still gets a lot of like traction on that one day that whatever the We Wear Pink Day is. It is like
You
people
mean
remember.
Wednesday?
No, it's Wednesday, but there's a specific date in the movie. In the same way that like years and years after it came out, October 26, 2015 everyone knew that was the day that it's like, oh, this is it. Marty McFly went to the future. Boom.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so we have all of these like very specific pop culture nuggets of knowledge that have just kind of carried over. Or like I've never seen Alien, but I know what he looks like. I've never seen Predator, but I know Get to the Choppa. Like
Right.
these things carry over into the zeitgeist, but nothing from Avatar has carried over. It is like this. It was this extremely huge bang, and then went away into nothingness. Like as soon as it happened, and like no one even like no one's revisiting it like oh man that movie was actually pretty bad. Like I think everyone just saw it. It is the perfect movie that represents escapism, like going away into this beautiful world where the plot is not super thick because it's Pocahontas. You already kind of know what happens even as it's happening,
Right.
and the good guys win. Every plot detail gets nice and like tied up, and it happened in 2008, which is at the end of this very weird season of American history where we are still ongoing in like two wars. The economy is collapsing. In fact, in like 2008, that's when things really hit the fan. And we're still in this like super dready time. And then James Cameron comes up. It's like, hey, look at this super like well done, really pretty movie. Just sit and look at this, and everyone does. And it is a smash that has been unparalleled to this day. And so I have this like thought that had Avatar come out literally any other time, it would not have been good at all, or it would not have made the money it did. Because it is the most popular and most forgettable movie at the same time. But because it came out when it did during this time of like national dread, it makes it is the most top grossing movie of all time. And I think that's so interesting that I just have this thought that had it come out a year later or a year before, it would not have made it. It would not have been as popular as it was.
Well, I wonder, I mean, there is this interesting thing, like, I heard this on a podcast recently, but talking about the Backstreet Boys have the top CD sales of all time, and it was basically like they hit this crosshair of popularity and CDs going out of print,
Mm-hmm.
that like like as time goes on, stuff gets more and more popular. Like all the top grossing movies are in the 2000s just because like movies cost more and you know what I mean? Like, but and
Mhm.
inflation. And so anyway, so with the Backstreet Boys, it's like they were super popular, yes, and there were much more popular acts after them, yes, but they sold all their CDs right before the CD industry crashed.
Mhm.
So like Kendrick Lamar is not selling CDs,
Yeah.
even though he's I don't know if he's more popular than the Backstreet Boys. But
Yeah.
whatever, whoever I mean, I have no idea. I wasn't old enough at the time to really like be able to gauge how popular really were the Backstreet Boys. Like I knew who they were, but like I don't know. I knew they were popular, but I don't know how. Anyway, I wonder because I remember I saw that movie because it was like the most expensive movie ever made, and I remember looking at my friends and being like, "We should go see the most expensive movie ever made." But like, I wonder if there's some correlation between um it was a popular movie, yes, but then soon after movie attendance started to decline swiftly. So like there will never be a more popular movie ever. You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
I mean,
maybe, but I think
I'm
like
not trying to like step all over your thing of like it is a very interesting question. I don't have a reason. That's just what it made me think of. It's like, oh
I
yeah, that thing about CDs.
I was so, but that the thing I was so ready for, because I've been thinking about this for years. I was so ready for Force Awakens to beat it. I was so ready for Avengers Infinity War to beat it. I was so ready for Batman like The Dark Knight or like Dark Knight Rises. I was like, I have been thinking about this for so long. I was like, these are the ones that are going to make it. Like, because the Force Awakens or like the Harry Potter movies, like the movies that are events that like people go to because it's like this is the last one, or like Star Wars is coming back, or this is the culmination of all of these movies coming into one. And I really thought that like one of them would have done it, but not one of them has done it.
Right,
Like,
but think about it on this way. Like, yeah, everyone's gonna go see Infinity Wars of the people that go watch comic book movies, which is a lot of people. But like, number two is Titanic. Well, why isn't Infinity War or why isn't The Force Awakens beaten Titanic? Well, everyone saw Titanic. You know what I mean? Like we
mhm.
do kind of live in some bit of a cultural. I'm looking at the list right now. We live in some bit of a cultural bubble where like we will go see, you know, we're gonna go see superhero movies, and a lot of these. Wow, Disney owns a lot of these movies. Fallen Kingdom is number 12. That has to be inflation. There's no way that movie did that well. Like, like comparatively,
Yeah.
Disney owns almost all these movies. But like there is something to like, yeah, Avatar. I mean, that's crazy. That is crazy. They almost made $3 billion. But like also Titanic. And I wonder if maybe we live in some bit of a cultural bubble where we think everyone saw Infinity War. And it's like, well, no. Everyone that watches comic book movies, I mean, it made $2 billion. Like, that's a lot of money. I'm not trying to step on your thing. I hate when people do that when you're like, I have an interesting question, and then they go, I have a simple solution. And it was like,
Well,
if there's a simple
I don't,
solution, I would have figured it out by now. So I'm not saying it's not a
I
simple solution. I'm just giving thoughts of like, what does that make me think of? It is an interesting question though.
no, but I mean, I think we're agreeing in a different sort of way where like I do think that because like Avatar had landed in the crosshairs like perfect, like in the same way that Backstreet Boys landed perfect.
Right.
Like had it come out any time before or after, it would not have done as well. That timing was a big section of why that did so well.
Wow, a lot of these movies are Marvel Cinematic Universe. Do you want to know what is in between number 16, Iron Man 3, and number 18, Captain America Civil War?
Age of Ultron,
It made 1,159,000,000.
was I right?
You were not.
Oh,
It was the Minions movie.
dude, that makes sense.
Well,
You
kind
know
of
why that
for different reasons.
that makes sense because of kiddos,
Yeah.
and it's like the same thing we were talking about. Where are we going? It's the same thing we are talking about with like the YouTube career of if you make child content or like content for kiddos, like you could like run away with several million subscribers because you trick the algorithm into it like showing you or like yeah it's showing your channel above the other ones because it's a kid friendly content and because no one's clicking on these things, they're just happening. So like no one wants to see the Minions movie, but their kids want to see it because they're colorful.
Right.
And like you have to go to it. And so like movie and like the Minions movie makes sense because did that come out after Despicable Me 2 or 3? Like who knows?
Who
But
knows?
it wasn't like it the Minions had their little like established cinematic universe. Like they were well established, and because of that they could get away with that because everyone's like, man, I wish Despicable Me just had the Minions, which is a terrible idea because they're the worst part of those movies. And they had already had a bunch of like toy merchandise, so like kids are growing up with these toys, and then this movie comes out and it's like, okay, and then everyone goes and sees it. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all that the Minions movie made that much money.
This list is the craziest thing I've ever read. It's like basically three franchises have made all the money. All of the Despicable Me movies are on here.
Yeah.
All of the Hobbit movies are on here. Some of the Harry Potter movies are on here. Two Fast and Furious movies, like Shrek 2.
Yep.
It's just really weird to look at. Like there's some random ones like number 33, Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass, the live action one. Like the live action Alice in Wonderland, it made $1 billion.
I don't know anyone that saw that.
Right
I don't know.
above it,
I don't know one person that saw that movie.
let me give you the next two above it. 32, The Phantom Menace. Fine. That makes sense. Star Wars was coming back. Fine. Number 31, Finding Dory.
Yeah.
And then Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is the only movie that isn't from the 2000s. Like it's the oldest movie on this list is Jurassic Park. And that one seems like, oh, that was an actual hit because money was worth less and it still made $1 billion. And then Despicable Me 3, all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I guess I just don't understand what movies people go see. Like, man, people really loved Pirates of the Caribbean, I guess.
I mean, that's why they kept making them. That's because like I think the top grossing of all those is like what, like Dead Men Tell, not Dead, the
Dead
like
Man's Chest.
the second one.
The second installment of the Pirates series
Wild.
in 2006 made $1 billion.
Yeah, and what's the third one? The third one's up there too because like this 2 and 3 tell one story, and it ends on a cliffhanger.
Number 28 is Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, which I think is the fourth one. It also made $1 billion.
That's great.
What? This is like a lot of the Transformers movies, and then like all Marvel.
Oh yeah, I mean that's because you see them in theaters.
I see them at my home, but yes.
And I think like most of the Fast and Furious movies are up there too. I think like Furious 7 is like made like a stupid amount of money.
Furious 7 is number 7, which might just be rigged. It made $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
And then Fate of the Furious is on there too. Number 6 is Marvel's Avengers. Do you want to know what the thumbnail for this list is?
What?
For this picture, like of all of Marvel's Avengers, what is like the image from that movie?
What's the image?
Yeah. I just want you to guess.
Is it not the poster?
No, it is Scarlett Johansson staring down at the ground while there's an explosion in the background, not doing anything in particular. She's literally just standing and looking at the ground, and it's the weirdest picture.
Sure, yeah.
To put there. This is so weird. I mean, some of it has to be inflation because other than 1 and 2, Avatar and Titanic, all of them like just came out, and like movie attendance is not up that much. That like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is going to be really made that much money. I mean, all of these movies just came out. So it's got some of it has got to be like, oh, just tickets cost more, like money is, worth less. And so there's, it just costs more money, but it doesn't mean the same. Like it's not adjusted for inflation. But even then it's like adjusted for inflation over like, 12 years. Like that can't be that much. Anyway, I'm not just going to sit here and read this webpage. We never talked about Black Mirror, but that's okay because that just sucks.
We talked about Black Mirror last week.
No, that was our lead into this week. I remembered about halfway through the conversation.
Ah, dang.
It's fine. We can talk about it next week.
I feel like we talk about because we talk about Black Mirror, we talk about Sherlock Holmes. I feel like most of our conversations are just us being mad that like these shows got away with it.
Yeah,
Like they got away with being bad, and then like they're revered as being great
yeah.
just because they tricked us.
I talked to somebody the other day and they were telling me about like, oh my gosh, Sherlock is so good. And I was just very polite about it and like, I'm not gonna go into this. I'm not gonna talk about it, but like, boy, do I think that show is super dumb. Um, and they were like, yeah, I've only got one episode left of season 4. And I was like, how are you still liking this show? You got to season 4 and you're still liking this bad show. But you know, whatever. I'm not gonna be rude. Anyway, maybe we can talk about it next week or something else.
Or talk about that one time that you and I watched like 7 seasons of Doctor Who, and it took us that long for us to be like, wait a minute.
We actually have already talked about that in an episode.
Oh man.
We did. We already did. All right.
Nope.
See you bye forever.
See you bye forever.